All right, so I guess what I'm gonna do, I'll just introduce this here. We'll start that way. Hey everyone, I'm excited today because I have a dear friend, great musician. That's just the start of the compliments. I mean, I guess I feel a kind of kinship with Derek Wells because we have had somewhat of the same trajectory. In some ways, very similar. In some ways, not. But it's been great to get to know him over the past decade and a half, and I got all these questions right here. Derek and I, right? We can talk forever, so
We can talk,
I probably
yeah.
won't need any of these things, but I'm excited. Man, I'm excited for you just to hear the experience that he's accrued, the wisdom he's got through so many years of doing what he does. And the only thing I'm going to do is this is kind of part of the love of this thing. We're filming without Robert today,
Oh yeah, getting it. Yeah, getting it.
and there we go. We're doing the Tom Bukovac special, just using iPhones, right?
That's right.
See, we have different angles,
The old Uncle Larry. Yeah, camera
Larry
one,
trick.
camera two.
and it's going to work. So anyway, Derek, thanks for coming out to the house.
Yeah, of course, Dan.
This is, I mean, for anybody who cares, you can see it's kind of afternoon time, post Halloween,
Post Halloween, yeah.
and so Derek, as I've said, Derek is multifaceted,
Okay.
and dad on top of that, to two beautiful children. So
yeah.
so anyway, I haven't been doing this long enough to have a system of the way I do this. So this, I'm all Derek.
great.
I'm all over the map, just like I am in the studio. So
Sure,
you're used
okay.
to this.
Yeah, this is
But what we can do,
yeah.
okay?
I'm amazed you prepped.
Are you kidding? There is so much that I do want to ask you about, but first of all, I don't remember this. How did we meet? When did we meet? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Maddie and Tay. They went to record. I guess they had a song, "Girl in a Country Song,"
All right.
and they were working with a different producer at the time, a really really talented guy named Aaron Schertz, and asked me to come in and play on an iteration of that song. And then Borchetta, Big Machine, kind of just the way Nashville things goes, you got brought in to kind of help, I think, shore it up and
Right.
be another producer on that, just some extra insurance on thing.
Sure.
And you ended up keeping a few of my parts from the first recording.
Okay.
And I believe, I don't know if we've ever really discussed it, but I think basically through that you asked Frog, Dan's
Mike-
longtime production assistant, Mike Griffith, hey, maybe we try that kid on something.
Okay.
And then I came in and did a Billy Currington session with you.
Okay. Wow,
And-
man, you have a great. Well, you're
and,
younger, so no wonder you have a better.
Well,
memory.
yeah, well, and it was at the time I'm going into work for my hero Dan Huff, and so I vividly remember it. Did that Billy session with you, and then it was like the Maddie and Tay single went well, and it was time to go make a whole record for them, and I was just along for that ride with you, and that was really kind of how it started. Those girls, yeah.
I'm glad you remember. I mean, I knew it was. I knew there was all this talk about you. You always sense this every decade or so, and now you're hearing it about. Hey,
I'm
have
on
you-
the other side of it now.
Right,
It's
yeah,
interesting,
you heard about this kid. It's always not derogatory, but it's just it's about you. Well, I mean, talk about that a little bit. Wait. Let's start even farther back. I mean, you're where you and I have a definite bond. We're both sons of musicians.
Yeah.
And so can you give context for how you grew up in this town, which
Yeah.
is rare because not many musicians grow up in this town.
Yeah. Which is obviously another thing you and I share together. It was interesting. I mean, my parents had me very young, so I mean they're still young people. We've talked about this, and so yeah, they were young musicians that moved here trying to make it. We're able to get in some really good touring situations with some artists. My dad's a guitar player, my mom's a really kind of settled into just mostly a singer for the bulk of her career. But at the time, she was a great piano player and played some other instruments and stuff too. So they were out touring with artists, and that's really what I remember as my childhood was that mom and dad were kind of out on the road. We were lucky to have some extended family here, so if they were both gone, I'd kind of stay with my Uncle Dennis, who you know.
Right.
But I've said this a lot in other conversational things or interviews. It's like we didn't really listen to music recreationally in my home growing up. It was very much a job. Yeah. And so, I hear people that come from a storyline of, well, my parents weren't musical at all, but my dad loved old records, and we would listen to Waylon Jennings or Beatles records or Led Zeppelin. That was not the case it was like my parents were working on music they needed to learn for some gig or something, And they both started music very young too, just nature of it. And so I think, they were just kind of past that, some of that exploratory stage, musically speaking, that you can have when you're young. By the time I was really old enough to get any of it, so the hooks didn't get me for quite a long time. I mean, I kind of grew up listening to the radio like kids in my school. I listened to music that my friends would have on in their cars,
right?
But I wasn't ahead. Didn't pick up the guitar till late, till I was a teenager. And
that's right, you did tell me that.
Yeah, and so that was really the case. But then I always say it's like, genetics probably really helped me close the gap once. And it was kind of right after I graduated high school, and something just shifted in me, and the music really started to impact me in a different way.
Right.
And I got opened up to some new music that I, hadn't been aware of, and as happens to a kid that's in kind of college age. And once the bug got me, it was over. Like I was I had nothing else.
What was it? But I mean, I do remember you telling me this.
Yeah.
So I mean, and for all you guys joining us, I mean, I obviously we've worked together for a long time, so I'm asking certain things that I know, but either my memory sometimes I don't remember it, or some of these things. I mean. So they're both gigging all the time.
Yeah.
You're doing what? Like, let's say before 10 doesn't really count. Like, so 10, 11, 12, are you sports?
Yeah, I was kind of a run-of-the-mill athlete. I went to kind of small schools here in Nashville,
Whereabouts? Which school?
In Bellevue. I went to Nashville Christian for high school, and I went to public schools out there, Bellevue Middle School and those things. And, Southern, kids, young kids about that age go play, my dad signed me up for a baseball team and this and that. And then when I was in high school, I really enjoyed athletics. I was never good enough to be any kind of star athlete, but I enjoyed the kind of seasons of we'd play football, and then we would roll into basketball season, and then it would be soccer season, whatever. And so that's how I filled my time. And it really was that, I think kind of maybe where you might be leading is, my first semester at college, I went to Western Kentucky, didn't have music, at all in line as some sort of career or anything at all.
Were you playing?
At this point, I had started playing,
Okay.
But real rudimentary stuff. And, I got to college and I wasn't playing sports. And I had that kind of classic freshman schedule where your classes are all 8 a.m. classes, and I would be done at 11 a.m. every day, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And that's when I really dug in on guitar. It was like, I remember coming home and asking my dad if he had a guitar I could take back up to campus. And he was like, yeah. He gave me some like old Yamaha electric or something, and I had a version 1 pod that just sounded terrible that he gave me. And I went to Radio Shack, and just this bizarre series of adapters figured out a way to run that pod through my little laptop at college, and I could play through headphones. And that was really like when the bug started to hit. And then it was like a couple months into college, all I was doing was sitting in my dorm with my headphones on, playing guitar.
This is 18, 17, 18?
Yes, right, exactly that age, because I was still 17 when I started college. And then I was a little young, just the way my birthday fell.
I mean, because you play like you've been playing all your life. I'm assuming you guys are all. This is Usually I talk to Robert, who is not here, by the way, today, because he had his foot operated on. So I'm flying solo. Yeah. So it's like every time when I turn to, well, I'm just going to talk to you guys too. But I'm assuming that most of you have heard Derek play. A sentence that I didn't finish a long time ago was that you're multidimensional. Player, producer, publisher. So I didn't say that, right?
No,
just help me on that one.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Lie if I did.
Okay.
But getting back to the playing, you don't sound like somebody who picked up the guitar closer to 20 because you're such a natural at it. So this thing started flowing. Is that the deal?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I got into it, I mean, really quickly, I came home from school. I was like, hey, I think I want to do this. Parents were like, this is a terrible idea.
Two musicians,
you're getting a late start. This is, tough. Also, remember the timing of this. This is 2002 now. Wow. Music industry just hit the shitter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the heels of Napster. Sales are going and everything, and it was tough around. And so I think my parents were really scared, and I think that I don't want to speak for them, but things we have talked about is that their largest fear in that moment was, well, is Derek just kind of floundering here, and maybe he thinks that this music thing can be an easy out for him because we do it.
Was this at the cost of college? Were you saying?
Yeah, I don't want to go back to school.
Oh, so they're looking at that too.
Yeah,
part of the question.
But what it actually was in reality, growing up here and having them as parents and having their friends and stuff, and even having an awareness of people like yourself, like I knew I wasn't good enough. I knew I wasn't even close at that moment. And so that started this kind of period of my life where like I was waiting tables at the Cooker in Green Hills. Remember that place?
Sure.
And I was fortunate enough, like my dad was, gracious enough to let me come back and stay in my, my old room for free in the house. I didn't really have any bills, and like, man, I didn't have like a girlfriend or go hang out with buddies or anything. I waited tables and I played guitar, and it was 18 months, 2 years of that before I really ever even put myself out as saying, hey, I'm a guitar player. Because I knew I'm not going to go embarrass myself. I know how good these guys are, and I'm not that good yet. But I just dug in.
I know your dad, and he's very successful and wonderful guitar player. Was there a particular point in time where he said, Derek, you have extraordinary gifts? Did he ever?
No, he said, don't do this.
He kept saying that. Really?
They and I mean we laugh about it, now. But it just in the context, it just seemed like such a left turn because I hadn't been a musical kid, and I just think they carried a lot of their own fears and understanding of how hard the business was, and I think after about 6 or so months of them kind of because I was living there, him kind of seeing how rooted in I was,
right.
He did start to kind of be like, well, you should go, if you're serious about this, you should go buy this Nashville number system book. Go down to Rock Block Guitars and buy it. It's called.
He had you buy the book. He didn't just tell you. He
was still like, if you're serious, go get the book.
I love it.
I went down to Rock Block.
I like that.
Bought the book and started teaching myself the number system and teaching myself how to write charts. And I even in that time I got online and I found the Berkeley guitar curriculum, and I just ordered a couple of the textbooks. They went way over my head, but I remember getting them shipped down. Again, this time, 2002, 2003, the internet is not what we know it to be now. Right. The resources weren't there. YouTube didn't exist.
Maybe, and let me ask you this one, just those a quick pitch in there. Good or bad that we didn't have it for you? I know what my answer is.
For me, good.
Because?
It forced me to develop my ear. Because I couldn't just get online and have someone show me how to play it. And that's my 2 cents. And you
didn't see somebody who could play better than you when they were like 7 years old.
Well, I mean, also that like some ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
But I think the real thing about not having that was how much it drove me to want to go, once I, started to put myself out there.
Right.
How much it drove me to want to go make music with other people, because, there's a lot of gratification we can get as a musician in this day and age in your bedroom, because you can play a thing and you can put it on the internet and have all these people tell you how good at guitar you are. Yeah. No one was going to pop into my, dad's basement and tell me how good I was at guitar.
Yeah.
I had to get out there and play. And so as soon as I started to kind of feel like I was getting some sea legs under me, I was really driven to like get out there and meet people and find other musicians and play people's writers rounds and anything I could do,
Was it the road first or demos? What was
road for sure. I got just kind of dumb luck, like met a person, got on a, gig that paid nothing, got on a little bit better gig, got on thing. And then the break for me was I got invited to audition for an artist named Josh Turner, who at the time had kind of one hit, Long Black Train. And, at that point, the goal for me, I didn't have some goal of being a studio musician or anything else. I just would like be cool if I could quit waiting tables at the cooker and go play guitar full time.
Yeah, yeah.
And Josh was I auditioned. They ended up offering me that job with him, and that was the first gig that was like kind of sustainable, and he had enough shows and it paid just enough that this is a real job. I have a real job. And I tell everybody, when I got that gig, I was still just barely good enough to have that gig. I mean, I was 21 years old, and I could, Brent Mason was a lot of the record at that point, some Brent Rowan, who's also brilliant, and I was just salty enough to kind of learn those parts and get them pretty close, and I had a good ear. But there wasn't going to be a whole lot of like, above and beyond or, jamming or creative. I mean, I was still, in my infancy, really as a musician at that point still, I feel like. But that ended up being such a special place for me because Josh was a really nice guy and a really good boss. And that camp was, a lot of people kind of looked at that camp and thought it was really reserved, but it was a great place for a young kid. And I would just, the first few years on that gig, I really, back to the tunnel vision, I didn't do anything but do Josh's gig and then practice.
Well,
That was all I would ever do,
So yeah, and Josh, and he had one hit, but that was a seminal hit. I mean, that
huge.
That really moved the dial.
And then he had a few more it was like clockwork. Like about 6 or 7 months after I got that gig, he started having a few. Yeah. My now friend Frank Rogers was producing those records, and he had a song called "You're a Man" and he kind of rattled off while I was there for 5 years. He kind of rattled off 6 or 7 more number ones, and it was a good gig for me.
Right. And so I mean, and this is because you play so many styles well. We're not talking about a big swath of time. What? 18 to 21, so that's your full development. That was your infancy.
Let's call it 16, 17 to 21, but yeah.
Okay, so first inclination towards country music or towards rock music?
No, I was a rock kid, for sure.
I you play metal, with a rock touch.
I loved metal records, and I was, Pantera and that kind of stuff.
Right.
I loved rock. Yeah, that was definitely the first, just learning riffs and stuff was the first foray. But when I was going to realize I needed to be serious about trying to play in Nashville, I knew I had to do that. I had to learn how to play these other styles of music, So
you have the fun thing for me, having a chance to work with you for so many years. I mean, of course, we all talk about Brent. I mean, he set the Albert Lee before him, but for our generations, I mean, and I'm a generation ahead of you, Brent really set the bar. But you play that Brent thing with such conviction and like knowledge. It's like so that you attribute that to that Josh Turner gig.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah, I because I had to get in. I had to learn it all, just note for note.
Right.
And again, that goes back to the part of my parents, they kind of told me, when I got the gig or even when I was auditioning, I think they were like, you got to nail this.
Yeah. Like
you can't play it almost right. Like, you got to do all this stuff. And You know, I was nervous and, you know, the whole thing. And then when I got the gig, it was like, you know, I'd learned 3 songs to audition. And then when I got the gig, I was like, he was like, here's one whole record and about 8 more unreleased songs. And you know, and I had to just get under the hood. And we didn't run tracks back then. It's the other part of this too. There, you know, at that time, I would say little to no touring country artists were running any kind of backing tracks.
Right.
Very, very, very few. And that partly just because, right, barrier to entry. The equipment was more expensive back then. Pro Tools wasn't cheap. We didn't have the sophisticated IOs and portable stuff like we do now. So, you know, it was like, okay, learn this record. And then also, oh, wait, we don't have all the instruments in Josh's band that are on this record. And that was like my first kind of foray into figuring out like these hybrid parts where you're like, oh, well, I guess I kind of need to do a little bit of what the acoustic's doing in this verse.
Right. So you're figuring out multiple parts to fill the space.
Yeah. And so yeah, I attribute to the Brent thing specifically that gig for sure. But then just being a fan of the guitar and obviously being aware of Brent, it was like once I had Josh's record kind of learned and I started to feel a little comfortable on that gig, that's where some more of the deep dive, you know, I'd go out and I'd do Josh's gigs for a week or on the weekend. And when I would come home, I would sit in I had a little apartment then, and I would sit there and learn more Brent Mason. I would learn stuff that Kenny Greenberg played on and that you had done and that Bukovac was on and, you know, I mean, all this stuff. And you know, that was my kind of like little guitar academy, was just learning stuff that, you know, seminal country records or current records or whatever it was, you know.
So you got this gig, you kept it for 5 years, but I'm assuming you started playing demos.
That's what happened.
Which is, you know, sadly enough, that's something that may be in death throes. But explain that experience, because I don't want to take it for granted that everybody, you know, this is obviously more centered to YouTube on a guitar experience, but not everybody knows it. And so from your angle, you got into doing, this is before you didn't do any masters with
no, not Josh.
Masters would be the final record. I'm telling you obvious stuff, but so first experience, or can you remember what it was, kind of the ups and downs of it? Did you get chewed up a little bit, or did you?
Man, immediately got chewed up. I mean, so, you know, I refer to it as session ghetto, and again, for context, and you know this, but some people may not realize, was just like home recording was not really a thing in the early 2000s. Again, it was way more expensive. We didn't have it just wasn't as accessible.
Right.
And so the only way to get studio experience at that time was you had to find a way to get in a studio with somebody. And, you know, some of my earliest sessions were, you know, kind of quirky dudes that had ADATs in their house and like had converted a living room into a herky-jerky studio. But it was recording with headphones on, and it was getting a chart and having to play a song that you didn't know before 2 minutes ago.
More overdubs or more tracking?
A little bit of both.
Okay, so
a little bit of both. And I was, again, I had become a relatively, you know, salty kind of acoustic player out on that Josh tour. I'd learned a lot of Brian Sutton parts and a lot of just really B. James Lowry, like a lot of great acoustic parts as on Josh's records. And some people would hire me to kind of do both. I'd come out there with a couple guitars and an acoustic and do this. And but I do remember, I tell everybody, I remember my first like triple like demo session, like a 10-2 and a 6, like you know, and 15 songs, which, you know, people may or may not be familiar, but like, you know, the demo culture for a long time was that you would go in and you'd cut 5 songs in a 3-hour session. That was kind of the demo culture. And I remember just getting the crap kicked out of me that day, just hanging on for dear life. Like,
was that tracking or was that overdubs?
It was tracking, like with a band.
You remember who was playing?
I do remember who was playing. And
you don't want to bring it up.
Well, here's the thing.
They treated you royally like a kid, right?
Well, 100%.
Yeah.
And which I was.
Yeah.
And, I literally, and I've told people this before, like I got, because, it's one thing to play along to a song, but then the idea of like creating a part and then creating a second part and then doing a solo. And, people, it's like in guitar, world, everybody loves to, talk about someone's solo, good, bad, or ugly. And it's like, man, we're given 4 minutes to do these sometimes, or whatever. Especially in demo world.
Was there another? I gotta ask you. Was there another electric guitar player?
I was the only guy, and this particular songwriter had kind of just taken a shine to me, and was like, I want to use this kid on a session, Right. And I remember going home and like literally crying, and called my mom. And was like, Mom, I don't know, man. Like these guys just kicked this shit out of me, the pace and it was like, well, yeah, and then the only sports analogy I can give is that, you can hit 10,000 balls in the machine. Yeah. It is not the same as a pitcher standing on the mound.
Yes. Yeah.
Throwing at you in real time.
Yeah.
And, really it's just, for me, it was just about getting back on the horse after a couple of those rough ones.
Right.
And, what I would always do is I would take away those, all the bumps and bruises that happened in a bad session. I would just go back and be like, okay, I'm going to work on this and this and this, and that will never happen to me again. That mistake, or like, I didn't understand what they were talking about, or this part of the chart messed me up, or it's like, I will do everything I can to not make that mistake again the next time,
I've observed, how do I say this? You have this ability to, and this is where the skipping around goes, because I'm taking you as fully developed Derek Wells now at this point, but I've noticed a key criterion to playing sessions is the ability to jump from idea A to B to C to D, so on, if necessary, right? And you I'm assuming you weren't as confident as you are today.
Absolutely not.
But you were confident enough to be in the room, right? But I've okay, so I got a question that's just going to emerge here. It's going to come out. Just bear with me.
Okay.
You today, like I've been I admire how lightly you hold parts. Like, in other words, you'll try something, and like if it was something that maybe I was producing or something like that, and I would, if it wasn't quite where I was going with it, or where the artist, somebody articulate to you, and you'd immediately go, okay, great, another part. And was that, going back to demo, Derek, did you learn that the hard way? Because you obviously didn't have the bank of ideas and experience when you were going through that.
Yeah.
But do you remember the first time when somebody said, you played what you thought was great, and they said, what else you got?
Yeah. I don't remember the specific, but, it's like that. It's hard to know whenever the first iteration of that happened. What I do remember is, more broadly, is just the idea of like, you just played a song and they're like, hey man, like, could it be different? And you're kind of like, well, what do you mean? Those are the chords of the song. I played the,
Yeah.
and that takes just, and that just, it's just at bats. It's like we're talking about, it's like that stuff just takes at bats and at bats and at bats and at bats to build. It's somewhere between repertoire and just ability to pivot, and then the last part of it is getting through your own ego of it, because it is, especially when we're young, it's hard to take that not as an assault on your taste or something. It's like, what do you mean you don't like what I just played?
Yeah, sure.
When you're young, that's tough and can frazzle you or whatever. And eventually, especially when you're so eager to prove yourself, it was like, not only did someone just tell me they didn't like what I played, they just told me in front of Paul Franklin. And, you just are like, oh,
Yeah.
But that's the parts that you just have to get. I don't know in other ways. I mean, did you have similar situations like it goes rough and it is what it is, but you had to just get back on the horse, right?
Yeah, I didn't have. I had a. I'll divert for 1 second. Make this 2 seconds about me. Then I'm.
No.
You can't
I
do
asked.
the. You can't do the Bukovac on me. 'Cause
Reverse. Yeah.
yeah, Tom. But no, fair question. I didn't do demos. Isn't that weird?
Well, again, it was a different time. Now I get it. Yeah.
It was. It was bizarre time because I mean I did a couple, but I had an opportunity and I got right in. But I took my lumps then.
Yeah.
And I mean, either way, I mean, I think to highlight what you said, you cannot simulate game situation, and being with people.
That's what it is.
And it's like I've said that one day everything clicks, you get that wind in your sails, you got the confidence, and the next day, none of that works. And what do you do?
That's right.
What do you do to move on? Because number one, this is your dream gig, your dream job. It's like,
right.
And the competition is steep, and there are 20, 50 people, probably more, waiting in line, especially in a music town like Nashville.
Yeah. But I also think it's the part of like, to me it's one of the most misunderstood elements of like the session when anyone's talking. I think that there's this conception that it's like studio musicians get to show up and just play whatever they want all
Right.
day, and it's like, and everything that we played I thought of, and it just was brilliant, and it came out that day, and the reality is like, I think a lot of people, once they get a taste of, hey, maybe it's something else, hey, actually, could you do another solo, could you, those kinds of things, that they find out they actually don't love the process, or at least the process as we kind of think about it traditionally in, popular music.
When did it occur to you at this time? You're doing these demos, you're getting the shit kicked out of you a bit, but you're moving, right, and more people are calling. That's always the case when you realize there is something here. Your parents are noticing this right now. You're what, 25 at this point?
Getting there, yeah, probably, yes, yeah, probably
Okay.
about 25, yeah, something like that.
At what point did you go, I'm in the club? I mean, when I say that too, I'm going to just make a disclaimer. That sounds awfully elitist, but I've been told by enough people outside that it feels that way, and so I'm always trying to describe that inside-outside type situation because it's not. It can come off like those inside are trying to hold off anybody outside the circle. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
We're mostly sitting there trying to keep our jobs.
Yeah.
So, but it is a trust scenario. Like for instance, when I'm telling you everything but again for our friends out there, I'm hiring Derek Wells, right? Why don't I hire somebody else? Well, because I know that you're the closest thing to a sure bet. Like in other words, the ideas, the responsibility, being there, showing up on time, the experience, the knowing so many different facets of music. You're going to bring in ideas, the equipment, all these things. Yeah. It's like I can check that off, and I can, as a producer, work with the artist and try to get what I need. I mean, and if I'm sitting there worried about any one individual, that's a tough thing. So, but at what point did you realize you have the goods? You are club worthy, shall we say? Did that happen at a point? Did you realize that, or what?
I don't think ever. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is one of those how much time do we have answers for me, because it's one of those
all the time you want.
Because so I remember being on a session one day, and I was doing pretty good. I was playing pretty good. I was just in my life at this time, and I was off the road. I was just focusing on sessions. I'd quit my Josh Turner gig. I was just doing this, and I was working a lot, and I was doing good. Hadn't played on any big records, but I was doing. And I was on this session one day at Ocean Way, and it was another demo, long triple. And, you know, most people know guitar player is usually the last guy out of the chair because you put a lot of parts on and there's usually a solo, right?
Right.
So it was one of those days, and everybody was super kind. And at this point, I had a rapport with all these musicians. It's guys we know and love, that I work with today, you know. And it was one of those where, like, I got done with the last solo at the 10 a.m. session, and it was the lunch break. And I walked out there, and the engineer was like, "Hey, man, great playing." He goes, "Well, everybody else went to lunch." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And I kind of realized, like, I don't have a single one of these guys' phone number. And they all just went to lunch somewhere. And I was like, "Oh, well, I guess I'll, you know." And so I just went to Midtown or something, got lunch for myself. Came back. Everybody's super friendly. Same exact thing happens on the dinner break. It's like I'm in there playing a solo. I walk out like 5:05. Everyone's gone. And it's like, I asked one of the assistant. At this point, even the engineer had left. The assistant was running.
Nobody says, "Hey, we're going here."
Yeah, it was just, it was just one of those things. And same thing. Like, I remember calling my dad, and I was like, "Man, I kind of had this triple yesterday, and it was good, and I feel like I played good, and the writers seemed happy, and everybody was nice, but it was just, this is what happened this one." He's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "These still might not be fun for a while," but he was like, "One day you're going to look up and it's going to be all your friends in the room."
Yeah.
And he was like, "And that's when it's going to be fun." And I say all that to say that it was that rapport built, and so back to like how, when you and I met, I was nervous to go work for, the legend and hero Dan Huff. But it was softened by the fact that I had already worked with Justin Niebank and Jimmy Lee Sloas and Charlie Judge. Right. And I had met these guys on other little projects and records and stuff. And so there was some safety there.
Yeah.
And so I think, there wasn't a moment, but there was, after a certain amount of time, that thing that my dad had prophesied had happened. One day I was on a session and I looked up and it's like, "Oh, these are my buddies now."
Yeah.
And that was, when it started to kind of feel a little bit different
30,
for me.
30? Are we late 20s still?
Probably late 20s. Yeah.
Is that when
28.
Is that when we met? You were late 20s? Because I remember. I mean, we would go out. We'd go out and have coffee and stuff like that. And you were another thing too. I mean, a characteristic that you have, and I recognized it because at this point, I'm probably in my late 40s, and I had some hit records and whatnot. But you were very insistent upon asking a lot of questions.
Oh yeah.
Which I remember earmarking that because I thought somebody who has that deep of questions, that much curiosity, is going to find those answers. And unless you have those questions, I mean, the assumptions, they don't help in this job, right?
No.
But okay, so like, this is just random, but I saw this. I wrote this one down today.
Yeah.
Being pigeonholed.
Oh, yeah.
When did you first? Well, okay. Before I say this question, I mean,
this is a great question.
What I don't do on this YouTube thing is I just made a decision. I don't know why, but it's not like I talk about everybody's credits and what we all do and stuff like that. If it comes up, I mean, you got massive credits, and I think it was it may have been our brother Tom who said, he said that's what Google is for. Right. So I mean, but you can bring up any scenario, any of these great artists that you're working with, but I guess the reason I want to get to the term pigeonholed is because that's the first like red flare going up in the studio world that you don't want to be because that's a job that you won't get if you're that.
That's right.
But it's inevitable, right? So what have you experienced, even with your vast ability to play, in and out of different styles? When have you been pigeonholed and you thought, come on, that's not fair?
Well,
and if I did it, don't mention that.
No, you didn't do it. And I mean, listen, I think many of us have our own like blind spots or plainly just types of music or things that we're not interested in.
Yeah.
There's certain things that like, I call somebody else because that's not fun for me, and I'm not even that good at it because I don't like doing it. And
Right.
I don't know of a time. Well, I'll say two things. I have kind of a two-part answer. The more direct answer is, I don't know of a time where I was like specifically pigeonholed because of my playing, but on my credits, I do remember getting hired. I got booked on a record by a producer that would be like, let's call it a more Americana style of music.
Sure.
And that artist looked up my credits, and based on some of the more like pop country stuff I had worked on, he was like, that's not the guy for my record.
Even before you played a note.
Before I ever played a note.
Right.
And the producer kind of called me like tail between his legs and was like, I'm sorry. I tried to tell him you can do this. And I was like, well, at least that thing he was mad at me for made a lot of money. So, but to your point, like maybe a slightly different answer is, I get this Josh Turner gig. It's all tradition. It's Telecaster guitar.
Right.
That's it. That's the whole gig, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to quit Josh's gig, and I'm going to try to make my stand here in town. It's 2011.
Okay.
Right? Guys like Tom, Kenny Greenberg, Jerry McPherson, Rob McNally at that point too. Like, no traditional Telecaster guitar was not on the radio.
Oh, okay.
At that time.
Yeah.
And the only kind of thing I had of notoriety was that I'd played guitar for this Josh Turner guy. So at that point, I felt like it was almost like starting over. Like I felt like I had to kind of prove to people, even people that knew me, that I could do other styles of guitar and not just the Telecaster thing. And that was, I can't say that I discovered anything in that process, but I was, adamant about, I would get gigs and stuff and like wouldn't even bring a telly, and, was just trying to play other guitars in public and, show people that I knew how to use cool effects and stuff like that. And it was a little bit of a, I won't call it a rebrand because those are both parts of my musical personality, but I did have to kind of prove to some other people that I could do this other stuff, really the stuff that was most happening on the radio at that time. Of course.
Well, when I first met you too, what I was absolutely floored by is your ability to do soundscape stuff. And by soundscape, again, this is, what I'm talking about, but the atmospheric guitar stuff, pedals, effects, it's one thing to have a lot of pedals and be able to turn them on, but to use them musically, that's a whole different thing. And during that time, I remember part of the music, especially here in Nashville, we needed that because, again, synths have just been, they're always on the periphery here. Guitar is still the accepted, and like the records that I've made, they're guitar records. God bless Charlie Judge and Gordon Moe and all the guys that come and play, but they're still guitar records. And so I tend to like to paint with the atmospheric stuff.
Sure.
I'm not any good at that. And in walks you, and all of a sudden, your ability to come up with it seemed like endless ideas. And you were Mr. M9 too at that point.
Yeah.
What took you into that? Was that because of what we're talking about now?
Well, I'll tell you what it was. Again, we're back to context is a funny thing. The studio culture, especially on demos, back then was not in the keys chair. Mm-hmm. Guys didn't bring in laptops and Nords, and they showed up, and the studio would have a B3 and a piano, and maybe if they were a pretty forward cat, they might have brought in like their own like Yamaha motif or something like that.
Sure.
But I was getting booked on these demos, and it was I'm in my mid-20s, late 20s, and the songwriters a lot of them are kind of more my age, and I'm playing with musicians that are 20 years older than me, and they're referencing stuff with these pads and these soundscape stuffs, and I just kind of really out of necessity, just for my own, I'd be trying to do this demo thing, and I feel like I really knew the reference. And I'm like, well, what it needs is all this texture stuff and it's blah, blah, blah. And so I just started figuring out how to do it myself. I was like, well, if we're not going to have and again, that's not a commentary on any of those musicians' unwillingness. It just wasn't the culture back then. I remember a lot of guys being like, oh man, if you want just a pad on this later, send it to me. I can do that at my house or something. Right. And it was like, as music was shifting in that time, it was kind of like, man, we need a pad to hold this thing together, or we need these sounds, or like, I know the records they're referencing, and it's this, textural thing. I don't know, I'm saying the same things over and over, but the point was, it was kind of out of necessity. Yeah. And then, several years in, it's like that role of the keys chair started to really evolve a lot more. And when people started kind of doing that a lot more from that chair, it was cool for me, because I'm like, oh, cool, I don't have to burn a pass playing a pad. Right. I can start doing all this other stuff. But that's where the pedal stuff came from me, was just, and again, I'm young, I was single, I'm doing this, and I'm eat, sleeping, and breathing it, and I would go home and I would figure out the best, cleanest way to just make a pad sound with my guitar, or to make it sound like synth stuff, or to make it sound like other things that, weren't a guitar, just to add texture and dimension. And so, several years of my life with a kind of focus on the soundscape part of it,
Okay, two questions. I mean,
and again, sorry, last thing.
No, go ahead. And by the way, since Robert Baker isn't here, I'm just making sure all this is going. We're doing good. We're rocking. Okay. This is a mom and pop shop thing great. Here, folks. So.
but no, it's like the we didn't have the plugins and stuff even. Again, the accessibility of those things just didn't exist. We couldn't just say, throw Valhalla Verb on there. Would you mind? Right. It was like the engineers weren't doing that kind of stuff on the fly. Now we do some of that stuff,
But going back to your early days, out of the necessity was what I mean.
That's right.
Your imagination. You weren't going on YouTube videos at that point and looking. You just were sitting with your pedals.
Yeah, I was just dicking around with it all night.
So this is where
drinking
I'm really
bourbon, turning knobs.
And by the way, I'm not apologizing. I've had a few people say, "Quit apologizing," for because this is not my day job, right? I'm not. Yeah. But I'm really curious, because I love hearing your experience, because I've observed it, right?
Yeah.
So I have my own. You could do a podcast with me talking about what I've observed about you, but that's one step removed. But what I don't do enough on this thing is like your sounds are like is top notch. I'm so a lot of times I'll go, what are you using? I want that sound. If I only had that sound, because that's you are as equally gifted at sound as you are as playing. I mean, which is so that's saying a lot, because you can play your ass off. But like, can you just talk about, like, you don't have to give a whole rig rundown, but like for any of those who are listening or watching that want to know kind of the nuts and bolts of what you carry around. I mean, can you just rattle some of that stuff off?
Well, yeah. I mean, if it's,
2 amps. Start with 2 amps, and let's take.
Well, I'll talk about the two favorite amps. Yeah. It's like I have an old Bassman that you love.
Yes,
that 63 Bassman head. No, that one's a 61 in the one that's in my cartridge rig. The white knob, white panel Bassman. You love that amp.
I do.
And you like my old my Marshall. I've got that 50-watt 68 plexi.
Yeah.
You like that amp, and I like that amp too, because that represents an era of Marshall where they weren't just trying to be a rock and roll amp.
Right.
They were just the Fender of Britain, and so those amps are still really cool, clean, and especially if you talk about layering and stacking and stuff, like they just represent, those two amps represent such different frequency ranges. And, again, the at-bats thing, you start to kind of learn over years, you start to learn kind of magic little combinations. But I would say one of the things from a tone perspective that I think most people, I'll just say the word overlook, or maybe doesn't get enough credit, is pickups in the guitar, man. And I mean, I spent years, of just trying new sets of pickups and doing this and putting them in these guitars and the wiring itself and like geeking out over the caps and stuff. And then that's not to say it's not in your hands and it's not all this stuff, but like, I think what I do in terms of a setup is pretty simple. It's a guitar to a pedal board to an amp. What I will say is that I went to great lengths to get really good iterations of, that's a really great bassman that and I have a really great amp guy that services that one. And the same, I keep my pedal board, the exact tone guys keep that shit tight for me. And I've spent a lot of time working on like pickups and guitars.
Matt, you also have a wonderful matchless, which sounds great.
That's a good. I'm lucky, man. We've got some good gear over the years.
Okay, so I mean, again, and you have more than this, but I mean, just for an overview, and those amps are fantastic, and like 4 guitars that you can't go without. Electric guitars. Let's just keep it on electric today.
Well, that's what I mean, when I was like still doing a lot of like demo sessions where we would carry stuff in. What I would always have was I would bring 2 double gig bags, and I would have a Strat, a Tele, a Les Paul, that gold top Les Paul of mine that I've had that for years, and I'd bring those 3 guitars, and then I had this PRS baritone that because of the way the scale is shaped, it still fits in a standard gig bag. So I would bring those 4 guitars, and I've got that old yellow Tele that 53. I've had that for a long, long time. And so I had that old Tele and a Strat and that gold top, and I had that baritone. And for several years, I mean, those were my guitars. And I would go into demo sessions with like a Princeton Reverb or a Deluxe, and that was kind of my rig of every day. And I felt like with those guitars, I could get around.
Was there one like for me, I had a Strat that I basically, I used 2 sounds for about 20 years. But did you, was there one guitar, if there was a go-to, like, Brent with this great Tele, is there one, like if you have one, you're going to take it? Like,
if I had one, it would probably be that yellow Telecaster, just because and not because it's a Telecaster, but because it's that one. And I just feel like I know all the sounds I can get with that guitar. It could rock, it could do the other thing. But that gold top Les Paul of mine I have would be a very, very, very close second in terms of like, I could take that guitar, because that's an original old PAF pickup in the bridge that I bought like, forever ago. I paid more for the pickup than that guitar. And like, that guitar, it sounds really great clean. Like I could do a country gig on that gold top. It'd probably be one of those 2. If I was like going into a situation, had no idea what I needed to do, it'd be one of those. But I never, and this is a kind of I think one more commentary on the weird way I came up through all this, but I never had like that guitar. There's the Strat for you, and Brent had the gray Tele, and JT had that blue Tele, and we've got there's a lot of us that kind of get associated with that thing, and I feel like I always was just kind of spreading it around, and also in the kind of, I would say when I was the busiest in my career, and meaning the records, like playing on a lot of records.
This is prior to being a producer.
Right?
I mean, when
I would intentionally like kind of cast myself on these records. So like I would, if I was playing on a Chris Young record, I would like use these 2 amps and like these 3 or 4 guitars for the most part, for like 90% of it, because I was terrified of repeating myself. And I just felt like I always tried to be really intentional about like, okay, well, I'm going to go play on this Maren Morris record, and I'm going to use different shit on this than I do on a Kelsey Ballerini record or Carrie Underwood record. And because I would wake up in cold sweats thinking about playing the exact same thing on someone's record. And you and I,
Did you?
we've talked about this.
I have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I have.
Nobody busted you though, right? I got busted.
I've never been like called out hard. I know that story. I know the story you're talking about.
Whatever. Yeah.
But you know, I mean, even with slide, like I would pick like certain records where I would play a lot of slide, assuming the artist liked it, and then there's other people I just wouldn't even pull one out.
Okay, there's another thing. Yeah, you're a great freaking slide player. I love your slide playing. Where did that come from? What's that?
I really don't remember. But I know I've told you, really the guy who kind of helped get me going playing slide was Justin Schipper.
Talk about that.
Because he was, when I was still in Josh's band, I hired Justin to come out and be our new steel player.
Yeah.
And so there was about a 3-year overlap where I'd been on Josh's gig for a couple years. We made some changes. Justin came out. Mm-hmm. And Justin was a great guitar player, and he was new to steel at that time. He'd been playing a couple years, which, as a steel player goes, he's been playing a week, right?
Yeah.
And but he was great, and he was already a really good slide guitar player. And he was just sitting out there on the road, and I'd be like, "Man, show me and what kind of slide do you use?" And like, "What do you okay?" And he was the first guy that kind of showed me just a couple tips and tricks about really a lot of your right hand stuff.
Right.
And then beyond that, it was just it's like a pitcher learning a pitch. Like at some point I just decided that I wanted to be a good slide player. And here's another thing that I'm just going to devote a bunch of time to trying to figure out, the pitch and the tonality and which guitars respond to it well and stuff.
And you have, sorry, I get, my brain goes as I interrupt too much, but that was a sorry to him, not to any of you guys, by the way. I'm just saying it.
Quit apologizing.
Hey, I had a great thing, by the way. I'm going to divert from this because I'm going to go back to the slide, but it makes me think of Paul Franklin.
Yeah.
And Paul and I were talking 2 days ago because he's going to come on this eventually. And he said, Danny, he always calls me Danny. Hey, can I give you one piece of advice? I love your YouTube. I said, yeah, anything, Paul. He goes, quit apologizing so much. So anyway, so this is Paul. I said, that's it? That's your advice? He said, yeah, stop. So anyway, so I don't think that covers apologizing to you for interrupting, but this is something this is another thing I've experienced, and don't let me forget, you just mentioned a couple pedals. You don't have to go through the whole thing. But you do this thing that I love, and you called it faux steel.
Oh yeah, the faux Paul.
Yes, and again. So is that back to your Josh Turner days? Because let me cite an example. Like I've been in situations with Derek where we don't have a steel guitar player, and he has this setting between his amp, his guitar, different guitar, higher action or no?
No, just as regular guitars I use.
Incredible, and you cannot tell seriously that there's not a steel player. I mean, you're not ripping like hardcore, Emmylou Harris, hot band type stuff.
Absolutely
not. But the stuff that you do does sound like a little bit like Paul, Justin do. Again,
it's the thing. It's again, there was an era, not that long ago, but as I was coming up, steel and fiddle were not on a whole lot of records, and because they weren't on a whole lot of records, they were never on a demo session. Oh. No one's going to pay the extra to have a pedal steel when there are very few on the radio anyway.
Right.
And so that again just came my own necessity of these moments when thinking like, well, man, I know what I would play here on guitar, but it also feels like it would benefit from this kind of steel thing. And that's when I just kind of started to do that. And again, it's just hours logged of doing it. Now it just feels so because I'm not doing anything different from a equipment standpoint to do that.
Right.
I'm just manipulating the instrument and the same pedals slightly differently to get that kind of, like I said, the faux Paul.
So basically, your portfolio is you spread this stuff out so evenly to where you can. I mean, if I were to typecast you as be a guy who can do freaking everything. That's what I mean. It's like a little bit because you also play great acoustic guitar too.
Thank you.
But it's like and this, I mean, again, from the educational standpoint, this is what I would call quintessential session musician 101, because it's you can be great at one thing and be called for that, right? Until that thing is no longer the thing. Yeah. And then the thing changes, and if you can't change with it, so I've seen you 15 years now. Is that?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, about 15. Yeah.
And let me just before I got wait. How are you doing time wise?
I got plenty of time.
God, so many. Before I forget this, because I want to segue just a little bit out of guitar for just a second, because of your production chops and now your publisher chops, and I want you to talk about that a little bit. But just do a little bit of pedal nerd type stuff, so folks can kind of, because they can Google you and see, they can listen to you on so many artists' records. But so give just a little rundown
of the pedals I use in general.
Yeah.
So. I mean, you already said I'm a big advocate of the Line 6 M9 pedal. Like, there's just something about when that pedal came out, it made sense to me. I felt like I knew how to operate it. And again, hours logged, right? Like, pound for pound, I've spent more hours. I have combed meticulously through every single sound on that box.
Yeah, you have.
And I've probably used every single one at some point. And I just feel like they really nailed it with that pedal. And then the other two that I really go back to are the Strymon delay pedals, and I'm a really big fan of the way they sound. They're just very musical. And then overdrive pedals. I was just telling somebody the other day, I'm a big like Ibanez Mostortion guy.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, I've used that. So I've got several of them. Again, I was buying. Anytime we talk about gear, I always feel like I need to preface this, because people go, oh, he uses an Ibanez Mostortion, and they get online and they're like $600. I was buying them when they were $60.
Right.
And so that's the other part. Whenever I talk about equipment I use or have, I'm really quick to point out that, like, hey, I didn't just wake up and decide I wanted to be a session musician and go spend $250,000 on gear.
Right.
I was buying Princeton reverbs when they were $700. Yeah. I was, all these times, I've amassed this stuff over 25 years. Same as you, And yeah, there's a couple big ticket items in there, but the vast majority of it, I did not pay current market prices for. But that Ibanez Mostortion is like the desert island overdrive pedal for me, because it really can do like just a little bit of something or a whole lot of something. And I really like the way it's got a bass, middle, treble EQ function, and the sweeps that whatever the EQ sweeps that they had on that, just for my hands and the amps that I use and the way I set my amps, that pedal has just always worked. It stays clear, just sounds like a great amp cranked if you can't just crank the amp, and it's a
Are you one of the only people that uses that here? Because I haven't seen that a lot. Or does everybody copy you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know Rob. I know McNelly's uses one or has used one a lot for years. You probably relate to them. Overdrives are one of those weird things that, like, they're just, for some people's hands, they don't work. Like, I remember there's that full tone OCD pedal that everybody had for years.
Right.
I bought and sold that pedal like 4 or 5 times because I would hear somebody sound amazing playing it, and then I would get it, and I'd be like, I can't make this the way I set my amps or my hand, I'd sell it, and then somebody else would sound great. Maybe I got a bad one, and I'd go get another one. And so I do feel like overdrives amongst guitar players, those are those things that you either gravitate to. I use that Winford drive a lot.
Right.
That's the one that XTS made that for whatever reason, that pedal just, to me, does the things I want it to do. It kind of feels like those old Rat pedals a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the sound in my head. We're all just chasing the
sound,
I mean,
I could. So you have what 3 or 4 distortion pedals in your board.
Yeah,
Compression. I'm gonna.
I do have a compressor. I have a compressor. I use that. There's a MXR compressor that's kind of more like an 1176 thing in a box. Again, I never really gravitated to those like Dynacomp sounds where it just feels like all the top end gets rolled off and some of those things. And so I like a compressor to compress, but feel transparent in terms of the tonality of it.
Right.
And then, Ibanez Distortion, Winford Drive, the RC Booster, Exotic Effects RC Booster is one of those pedals that's on every board I have. Another, just a great like tone shaper, but also adds a little bloom stuff to the thing. Strymon Timeline, Strymon Mobius, Line 6 M9. I'm a volume pedal guy, which I learned later in my life is a real polarizing thing. Like anytime I see a guy with a guitar, like a pedal board, and there's no volume pedal on it, I'm like, how do you do? How do you do it?
How do you tune?
Yeah, how do you? I mean, it just throws me. Yeah. I'm just such a volume pedal guy. And that's really, and then a couple of EQ pedals. Yeah, and that's really the everything I use.
And if you were, I mean, I know this is a loaded question. I already know the answer. I mean. You could go and use any amp, any guitar. You're still gonna just futz with things until you kind of get it the way you.
I'm gonna try, yeah.
I mean, so it's not like you're well, other than the Ibanez, which you met in the M9.
Yeah.
If you had two, I mean, what Desert Island things,
those would be the two for sure.
Those are going right.
I've literally done gigs with that.
Yeah. The M9. I mean, I've done a gig with just the M9.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm not. I went from being pedal dude or rack dude, more like, it wasn't as much of a pedal dude, to like nothing dude for 30 years. Yeah. Now I've got my little board, which you can see, which he was pointing at a minute ago. You guys can't see this, but yeah, I mean, I don't know why I use some of those pedals. They just were there. In my closet, I got a pedal closet.
Totally.
Here I had an experience one time. I heard this great tone at a concert. It was Mike Landau playing.
Well. That tracks.
Did we talk about that?
No, I'm just saying the guy's incredible.
He was playing the arena here, and he was playing with James Taylor, and he did this one solo that just floored me. The sound of it, and of course, his playing, and I called him up, and of course, I can't remember the pedal he told me. It was probably what is that? Boss. It's probably a Boss or something. Maybe it was the Ibanez. Yeah. Whatever it was, he told me something that I'd never done. All the years of playing guitar, I would never turn my tone control down. I always thought those were supposed to be wide open.
I know.
Same thing?
For a long time, yeah.
And he said, what I do is I turn it down, my tone control down to 3 and run the pedal pretty much wide open and then turn the treble down on the amp.
I know.
And I thought, well, how long does it take somebody to learn something obvious like this? But that's what he was doing.
Well, but it's also just the, like stuff like that, to me, like that's not a hack. It's just like something about, because that whole order of operations didn't just happen for him at once. It's like that was like his years and years and years of doing it, and eventually he started doing one of the two things, and then he started doing the second of the three things, and then he started doing the third, and you realize you're like, oh, catalog this, and that was another. The learning to use your tone knobs was a big thing for me because I was always like, hey, turn the volume all the way up, I still to this
late
day
in life
to this day I don't ever like fuck with the volume. Like I don't do any of that. Like guys that like run the amps dirty and clean up is I don't even know how to. It's confusing. Volume wide open. Now I do a lot of tone knob stuff, but the volume knob I'm always just like, and when you back the volume off, it cleans out. I'm like, I will never do that, brother. I'll just turn it off.
Well,
I'll just turn the pedal off.
I love that because you affirm my and I actually am doing a little volume stuff, by the way. But that's another day. Okay,
it's amazing the guys that can do it with their pinky.
Oh,
I'm like, I got a volume pedal, man. So, again, it's just how you came up, right?
Yes, I played with Phil Kagi.
You told me it's brilliant.
And yes, watching him do that, all that stuff was okay. So I'm going to use this. This is usually when I ask Robert how long we're going, but this is so good. It's so much pertinent stuff. I want to. So you've been making records. You were, the I don't know who. We always say the top call guy. I mean, if you're in the top 5, you're top call. I mean,
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
but you. I mean, so you've been in that slot for decade plus, and so you've played on all of these phenomenal hit records. If that was it, was that going to be enough for you? And then what happened to you to where all of a sudden it was like you get called to be a producer? And so I'm going to let you go on this one for a bit, because embedded in that question is like, then how do you balance that against your guitar playing? You love guitar playing.
Man.
So where's this whole Derek Wells experience going right now? Because you're also still taking sessions. I know, because we're working together next week.
That's right. Yeah.
And and you're still playing at the top of the whole ball game here. So fill me in on this whole new chapter of your life.
I mean, kind of as I referenced earlier, like I didn't have like goals or aspirations to do this stuff. Like when I started playing, it's like I told you earlier, like when I started touring, I just wanted a job playing guitar.
Yeah.
And it was similar when I started playing sessions. Like I would just like to make my living doing this. And then it was like, well, if I could play on a few records, that'd be cool too. It'd be great to, make some real money or play on some stuff that's going to maybe stand the test of time, some released music. And once that stuff started to happen, it wasn't like, well, I'd love to really start producing more. It just, some people started asking me, and it started with songwriters. A couple songwriters that didn't have record deals but wanted to kind of release an artist record and didn't have all the funding that a major label would have, or access to, producers like yourself at that time. And, people like Frank Rogers, and yourself, were always so gracious to me, in times when I was like, I don't know, they want me to produce. I've never produced a record. Like, what should I do? And, Frank was even like, man, here, I'll send you like my budget spreadsheets. Like, here's how you should totally do that. You've got a mind for it. Like, your input on sessions, like you're a producer, you just don't know it. And, conversations like that. And it really just started leading to that, and it was scary, and I was hesitant because I felt like, man, I worked so hard to build this career as a guitar player, and I've got a good situation here. And you hear horror stories of producers feeling threatened by a musician, that they start to feel like, well, I'm not going to hire that guy if he's competition in the production department, And I know you and I have talked about that in your career and experiencing some of that. And I think I was really cautious when I started doing it to just like let people know, like, hey, there were times I called and asked permission, I remember calling you about a thing and being like, hey, I got asked to do this.
Well, I mean, specific, there's probably something that I'd worked on and they wanted you.
It was like, and it didn't even have anything to do with you. It was just like a label change and a regime change and stuff. And I was just like, well, this is, I love you. I love you guys and I would love to do this, but like Dan is an extremely important relationship to me, like as a friend and a human, and like, I'm not going to burn a bridge with, like, respectfully, I'm not going to burn a bridge with him to do this thing. And so there was some tightrope walking for a few years, but
did anybody? I know I did. I mean, I think you're a great producer.
You were one of my biggest champions, honestly.
But did you? You don't have to name names, but did you get any pushback from anybody, or?
I never directly.
But did you hear some?
Heard a couple, but if I'm really honest, it. I don't want to say it wasn't from anybody important, but the most important people in my life understood.
Yeah.
Guys like you, guys like Frank Rogers, guys like Scott Hendricks, guys like Frank Liddell, like Joey Moy. When I started to do some production, you guys were all champions, Go get it. Absolutely. You should do that. You should do, hey, guys just called me, and, you know, guys like Joey and Frank called me about things they couldn't do.
Yeah.
Hey, I told them you'd be good for this. You know, I can't do it, or this or whatever, but, you know, so, you know, I would say the couple relationships that maybe I lost or got fractured probably weren't the strongest to begin with. You know, if that's, you know, if that's going to be the end of a thing, you know, it's like, and again, I would have always like been honest. And I think what I've always really tried hard to do is be cognizant of the seat I'm in that day. And man, if someone hired me to play guitar, I'm not going to be in there throwing around all my production ideas, you know, and that doesn't mean I'm not going to contribute, you know, but like, I don't come on your session and get all up in the guts of a song when you're there. I will obviously weigh in on an opinion anytime something's asked of me. I'll give a thing, you know, but I've always tried to be very conscious of not feeling like I'm encroaching on somebody else's gig,
Right.
because I have this skill set. You know, it's like I try to be mindful of what I was hired to do there that day. If I was hired to produce, I'll produce. If I'm hired to play guitar, I'm going to do that to the best of my abilities and offer whatever insight I can, you know, and kind of try to let it stop there, you know.
Personally, I don't know if you're like this, but I like to hire producers.
Well,
because
and
it's just the idea that the more firm ideas that are coming out there. I mean, obviously you have to have confidence in yourself at that point. But do you like to hire people that are producing too?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you know, I think we've both thrown around that term player coach, and it's really just people that get big picture.
Yes.
That's really what it is. And it's like, you don't have to have been a producer credited on somebody's project to be a musician that understands like the holistic nature of a song. And, you know, I'll have said, you know, and this isn't a slight at all, it's just the nature of a thing. It's like, you know, I have said about certain musicians, I've been like, man, they're brilliant, but they're still, that person is still more of a piano player than they are like a producer, like a 30,000 foot kind of musician. They may be a brilliant piano player, but there can be a difference. You know, the people that approach it holistically, and again, back to sports analogies, like I think it's the difference between a person like Peyton Manning, who by the end of his career was like calling every single play, you know, and understood everyone's job on the field and do the thing, even though his role is quarterback, versus like, you know, a brilliant running back who's incredible, but you know, he's just got that one job.
Right.
And he does that thing. And I think, you know, to your point, when you're casting for any record, you know, you want to get personnel right stylistically, but then the very next box is, who will I not have to micromanage here?
Part of
because
the deal,
they're going to get it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and when you produce, it's funny. I think you were much more. I watched your session career, and I wish I'd have been a little more like you when I was younger. Although, I mean, it worked out fine for me. So whatever I was doing was accepted. But you innately understood how to be a team player, because like when you know, I'm assuming the same thing too. When you hire a band, right? You're listening to a lot of things, and it can't be about any one specific part of a band. It has to be about the artist, right? So, I mean, you can splurge a little bit on one player if you need something special. But at the end of the day, if your Derek Wells is playing guitar, I've never seen you demand all the attention, because I'm assuming that what confirms that is also you're sitting in the producer chair and realizing it from that angle too. You know, you get it both ways. I mean,
Well,
you
yeah,
understand it.
and you know what those high maintenance personalities can do to a session, and sometimes the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah, sure.
You know, but man, when you're trying to cater to an artist in this day and age, like a label and a manager and all the team members that are in there, and there's a lot of people weighing in and stuff, and it's really hard to split your brain in those ways, and that's just the tracking day, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting, it's an interesting thing to get on the other side and see. And what I will also say, I benefited from, is, when we started working together, I was kind of the young guy on the scene at that point.
Yeah.
And I had such reverence for, I think about the guys on your sessions, like, at the time, Ilya and Jimmy Lee and Chuck Judge, and just being like, man, I'm not going to say shit around these. Like, these guys are the, I don't want to come off as the brazen, overzealous, young jackass kid. Like, these guys are brilliant musicians. And I mean, they can all play circles around me. So I'm going to, like, to your point, I'm just going to soak it up. I'm going to learn a lot. And I still feel that way. Like, I don't want to, suck all the air out of the room when it's guys like Paul Franklin and, Greg Morrow and Glenn Worf or whatever. I mean, these guys are incredible.
Do you play on your records when you track? Do you track, or do you?
Not anymore. I tried to do that. It was, you learn, Yeah. Well, and you probably experienced this too. Early on, that's part of what people are, they're like, we'll get, he plays on all these hits, so we'll have him produce our record. And so you playing on it feels kind of like part and parcel of what they're buying.
Sure.
And the first couple times I showed up on a session and wasn't playing, everyone was kind of like, well, but you're going to play on it eventually. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I'll like, but don't worry. But this guy's, he's great. There's a reason he's here. He plays on all these other records too. And that was where I learned a lot from you, was just kind of, well, I know the things that I feel like I'm pretty good at, so I'm going to try to get somebody that plays a little counter to, to maybe what I would do naturally. And then I'll fill in, like, I know how to do this and this and this, and I'll fill in those gaps if they don't happen. And then, yeah, I've experienced this as a player on your thing. There are days when I'm working with you that we get the ball really far down the field. I play a lot of parts, and we do this and this and this, or you might ask me to play a solo. And then there's the days when I can tell you're like, I got to focus on, I got to get this thing right with drum. I got to get this thing right. I got to figure this thing out. And it's like, I'm probably only going to get one part out of Derek today, but that's okay, because I know what to do. Or we've had those moments where, like, in the last minute, you've been like, hey, I'm going to do another guitar and I'll play a solo on this, but will you do that steel thing before we break for lunch or whatever? Like, you're so good at knowing, like, what you'd really like to get out of me, and even on a song-to-song basis. Because I've watched the days when I can tell you already know what you're going to play, and you've got a thing here and you got a thing here, and I may do one part and we're good. And then the days when, we get, everything's clicking and everybody's moving.
Sure.
And it's like, well, you'll tell, you'd be like, I won't even have to play on this one.
Well, my motivation for saving solos for myself. I mean, it's not that my solos are any better. It's just that when I have to have a little carrot at the end of that if I'm going to produce something and I'm not playing, I love playing the guitar. So,
I know, yeah.
So I save myself some fun little icing, because solos are usually, that is the icing. It's not like when I was growing up, the solo. Well, to me, the solo was everything. I didn't even know what a song was.
Right.
Guitar solo is everything. But so enough about me.
But again, like, credit to you as a producer understanding what you need to get that day. There have also been times where you've told me, hey, don't worry about solo, I'm going to do this later. And then right at the end of the thing, you're like, hey, I was going to play a solo, but it's got to be that sound you're using on the intro. So would you mind doing one? And it's like, to me, that's when it is. That's the right call, because you're like, oh, yeah, I see. It's got to be that thing. Yeah, will you do it? And you always have great input on solos too.
And it's also because I only have so many ideas. We all only have so. Yeah. So you have to, as a producer, you have to think beyond your ego as a guitar player. Do both of those sides, and I don't know if you have anything to add about the publishing side of you, but I'll bring that into it. Do they inform each other? Do you like the tension? Do you like the fact that you're not just one specific member of the music community? I mean, I also know I'll give you this compliment too. You are a freaking great board member. I was on the CMA board with you.
yeah.
You are really serious in your communication skills in that. I was a hack at that stuff, but I mean, so you do CMA, you do what? You do the
ACMs too,
ACMs. Do you do the Grammys?
I used to. Three was too. 3 boards is too many. I can. If anybody's wondering, 3 boards is too many.
Okay, so but do these things? I mean, and bring those in. Do these all inform everything? So it's feeding off each other, or is it starting to drain you? How do you feel now? What are you 40 years old?
42.
Okay, so 42. That's man, you're in the vortex of this thing. How do you feel? Are you tired, Derek?
Sorry, I got more gray hair than you, Dan.
Well, that's because I use products. So.
You know, I think that the easiest way I could sum it up is just to say that above and beyond any job I have,
Yeah.
I'm a Nashville guy.
Yeah.
And music is not a competition, but I firmly believe that pound for pound, the greatest musicians and engineers and songwriters and singers in the world live in Nashville. Yeah. And the community as a whole is important to me. It's important that our city and the care and attention to detail we make music with is respected. And I think that these other hats I've ended up wearing just come from that. Mm-hmm. Like I just wanted to be a guitar player, but when called, and asked to be a part of these things, you go, well, this makes sense. This stuff's important to me. I want, I say good for the genre, but good for the town.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to be of service, in these capacities, or, whether it's being a publisher or, helping someone produce or whatever. It's like, I just walk through the doors, and I usually will walk through them because someone asked and because I thought, well, there's good people involved in this and this feels like it's important. I'm going to go do it. I think it's kind of as simple as that.
If you 42-year-old self right now, looking back, give 20 years back, is there something that if you were given the chance to do over again, and I don't mean this in a regret standpoint, but I just mean from a standpoint that you've learned, the whole conversation we've had, how you've come to all this knowledge. Is there anything that's burning in the back of your mind, like, God, I wish I would have just known this and done this one thing different? Obviously, has not affected your, your massive ascent into what you do. So everything has worked, but
I think my answer is no, with the asterisk that, in the same way that, you're laying in bed at night and like just some, awkward memory from high school pops up and you're like, I was an idiot. I have those things in my musical career too. I had to, I was having to, I had to I was Josh's band leader and I was having to fire people when I was 21 years old. And coming up through sessions and the music business and the lines of friendship and all these things get blurred so often. Like, I definitely have flashes of regret of how I handled certain situations, of just being like, man, I should have been a better communicator then, when I was 24. I wish I'd have handled that differently. Like, I wish I had put more focus on some of the more relational parts of it. I got really tunnel vision for a little while about the just the guitar playing and the session thing and that kind of thing, and so I would say it's more that stuff. There's not a thing where I'm like, man, I turned down such and such and I wish I would have done that, or I regret taking this gig or any stuff like that. It's all worked out well for me.
Yeah, it has.
And I've been good spot. But I think just, you're coming up and you're building your career, and you're moving through things fast, and it's like, yeah, there's some, look back and go, oh, I was an idiot, or like I really put my foot in my mouth over that, but I think it's just I don't think anybody really gets to the end of their life and doesn't have at least a handful of those.
You also one other hat too, and I do have. I'm going to land this plane, but I have 3 more small ones. But another hat that you also wear. You are the go-to guy to put together bands for events.
Oh,
and I'm not talking about weddings. I'm talking, but you because you do. I mean, what you just said. So you have that experience too, because just doing that. That's not as easy as what you might expect.
Man, yeah, it's. And again, that stuff just comes from those things beget more of those things.
Sure.
And I truly can't remember what the first version of something like that was, but yeah, at some point I just started getting those calls consistently, whether it's an award show or maybe someone's tour or a charity thing. You did a thing with me a few years ago at Belmont.
Loved it. Yeah, you called me. I loved it.
And that's more so, again, just back to the because I promise you, whatever money, if you make money, if it's not even a full charity thing, if I'm making any money at all, right. If you break it out in the time spent on it, it's probably a little less than minimum wage. But that's just the stuff you just feel like, man, you just do it. Like, people important in this business, and that's some stuff that did come from being on these boards, get on these board of directors, and you're representing the musician category of votership and membership, and you start meeting these people in the booking world and at record labels that, hey, this label wants to do a showcase for all of our artists, and we need a band, and hey, Derek, would you, and so, like, again, was never on my career bingo board. I never thought, 25-year-old me was like, yeah, I'm gonna get off the road and someday I'll be like leading bands for TV shows, and it was just like, be cool to make a little more money playing guitar, be cool to do records, because I think that's fun.
Yeah, one question was, did I play too loud or not enough? Because you've never called me back. No, that's not a question. I did. I enjoyed it. I got that call. I felt really good about myself. You wanted me to play live, but I figured maybe I just played too many notes.
I was calling your bluff because you had said, it was like a week before, you were like, hey, you ever do these things? I would come play one. And I was like, Dan, I know how busy you are. And you're like, I'm serious. I would come play. And it was like 2 days later. I think it was a Michael J. Fox benefit.
That was awesome.
It was like 2 days later they get called, and I go, Dan, you asked. Here you are.
Okay. Got the regret question there. Okay, last two. I got the last one's a little bit of a doozy, but I think it's part of the conversations we have to have.
Okay.
You have any recollection of the best advice you ever got from a musician that you would think pertinent? I mean, that's talk about a loaded question, but do you remember anything like that you want to share that with anybody?
I have a few of them.
Do them. Both. 3.
I remember, this is kind of big picture stuff, but was on a session with this this guy that played acoustic, and he's still around, but he's 77 or something. I think he's kind of retired at this point, but he was just always really complimentary of all the other players on the session. And I mean, this is a session story, but I think it's applicable.
Yeah.
And I remember telling him one day, I was like, this one account we always worked on together. I was telling him, I was like, man, you're always so kind, like, outwardly to all the other players, like, be in the control room, and he's always like, man, you sound great, And he goes, oh, well, yeah. He goes, the goal is we all get hired back.
Like that.
And it was like, yeah. Because, in any band situation, live music, studio, whatever, I feel like large and away from an emotional standpoint, these tests are pass-fail. And it's like the client or a writer or an artist or a producer typically leaves there feeling like, that was great, I would do that again. Mm-hmm. Or they would go, man, what a rough day. And I feel like rarely do people single it out as like, man, that was a good session, but boy, I had a hard time with that bass player. I feel like they usually just leave the show or the gig or the hang or the record or whatever, feeling like that was fun, I would do that again. Or like, oh man, I might try something different next time. And when it's that try something different next time, feels like anybody's on the chopping block.
Yeah.
And so just that idea of like, you know, it's not that, you know, we need to provide lip service to our fellow musicians and thing, but that idea of like, man, we're all here trying to get this ball in the end zone.
Yeah.
And just remembering that, and there's ways to, you know, if you see somebody stumbling, I had that for me, guys just coming over and quietly being like, hey, you know, I think it's kind of like this, you're playing to this, and it's like, oh, cool. So that everything goes smooth and taking care of everybody and just being positive in general, you know, on those things. But that, when he said that, he's like, the goal is we all get hired back. I was like, oh, you are right, sir.
Yeah.
And because I'm sure I've benefited from that, you know, even unknowingly at times where it was like, I was probably the weak link on the session, but the session went well.
You're always part of a community. I mean, nobody's an island in this business.
It's about, to Justin Ebank, this business is about the people.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's that. And then the other one, I remember reading nobody gave me this advice, but I remember reading an article in Guitar Player magazine, and they were asking, was something my stepdad had given me, and I read it, and they asked him his advice, and he said, learn how to fix your own shit. And when I was young and didn't have the money to be running to luthiers and stuff all the time, like, I learned how to like turn a truss rod and set intonation on my instruments and got pretty good with the soldering iron. And back to like the tonal part of our conversation earlier, like spending some time getting under the hood of your shit, when at all possible, I think only helps you understand, you know, how it's all doing its job in the tonality of things, you know, figuring out the ins and outs of your pedal and like really finding the edges of what all your shit can do, and just being able to do that. I think that was like tremendously helpful for me, and just like keeping your instruments in tune, like being able to tweak that kind of stuff instead of just being like, someone come, my guitar feels weird today, someone come fix it. You know, it's like, you know, that learn how to fix your own shit. That's advice I got.
That's good life advice too, right?
Well, fair. Yeah, I wish I could work on my own car. I can set the intonation on a Stratocaster.
Right.
Fuck an oil change.
You exude all. I've witnessed all that stuff. So I mean, this is not just talk. This is the real thing. Okay, here's the what, the grenade and the punch bowl, right?
Okay.
Kind of cheap in this way, but I do think it's in lieu of everything that you've talked about, which is, you're incredible to interview, Derek. We're now up on the abyss, right? And you know, abyss I'm talking about, it's AI.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's going to affect the world in every possible way, right?
Yeah.
We know that, but let's just bring it to music right now.
Yeah.
And so, thoughts? This is the party question. You get to take it wherever you want. This will be the end of our discussion.
Well, you know, I understand how many people can feel many ways about, let's just say specifically, generative AI in music, right? I just believe, and that has been my experience, because you and I you've done this longer than me. Even in my tenure, I've seen several things come along that everybody thought was the boogeyman,
Right.
that was going to end the music business.
Right.
Somehow we're all still here. And as it pertains to AI, and you know, let's take a thing like Suno, right, where someone can put in, you know, words and spits out a song, right? And it's like, man, we're all in trouble. You know, it's like, well, I do think that there is a percentage of the industry or you know, the business that will be affected by some of those things. But I believe that by and large, people want to make music with other people. And I think that, you know, we are at, you know, peak novelty with this AI stuff, because every day it's blowing our minds. Someone's opening it up for the first time, or it's getting better, and we're going, God, look at what it can do today. But once that kind of settles, it's like, I don't really believe that people want to just sit in isolation and have the computer make music for them. I think it's fun and it's kind of quirky, and especially if you're a person that doesn't have access, if you don't live in a big music city.
Right.
If you're a person in Nebraska and this is now this new way to like bring some of your songs and ideas to realization, like, then that's great. Does it have an impact on what we used to call mail order session? That person in Nebraska used to have to contact somebody in Nashville or somebody remote on the web and send them their music and have it done. And that part's gone. Yeah, surely that type of work is going to take a small hit. But I think by and large, it just becomes another tool for us all to use. And I think you're either going to be, I was talking to a friend that's in, that's a lawyer. And the conversation was like, well, AI isn't going to replace lawyers. You're just going to be a lawyer who uses AI or one that doesn't. And if you don't use it, you run the risk of being behind, the curve and maybe not being able to turn things around as quick or whatever. And so, I think largely we are, like I said, we are at peak novelty. Our minds are being blown right now by what AI can do. But I think as the novelty starts to wear off, everyone's just kind of going to go back to, it's going to be what it's going to be, that it's going to be novelty. And there's always going to be exceptions. Someone's talking about an AI artist, that a record label just signed an AI artist, and they have a sound. It's like, well, yeah, sure, that's going to happen. One-hit wonders have happened since the dawn of time. But like, it's hard for me to believe that this AI artist is going to build a long-standing fan base and people that go back to buy the music of this AI artist, over and over and over, when they're not a real person.
Yeah, I was wondering how that's going to affect the show.
Yeah, right, exactly. So again, it's like, yeah, there's going to be exceptions. There's going to be these things that happen that's going to be like, wow, this AI song's got 200 million streams. Like, man, I just have never been a doomsdayer, and I don't operate out of the fear of this kind of stuff. It's like, well, it's another thing that exists now. It is here, but the amount of times I heard like, man, these sample libraries, man, people are going to stop hiring guitar players. Hadn't happened yet. Here I am still making a living playing guitar. And, people are still asking Dan Huff to produce their records. I just think that at the end of the day, I think if the takeaway I would want to leave is that I just really believe that people want to make art with other people.
That's the only thing you're recounting of the necessity, the absolute necessity of your demo days. Yeah. That's the only part that makes my heart break, because it's going to be a lot easier for people to do demos. I mean, when money is tight. But
but the reality, and there's a whole conversation we could have of the quote unquote farm league for baseball disappearing, which is the demo scene. Because as we talked about, no matter how sophisticated your home recording situation is, and no matter how great of a musician you are, that is not real game experience. And so I do, as a guy who came up through Session Ghetto and Farm League and AAA demo sessions, whatever, I mourn the loss of that for the next iterations of me, because they don't have those experiences. I got to go in and play on great songs by guys like Ashley Gorley and Jeffrey Steele and, whoever on these demo sessions. And that was an amazing proving ground, and got to be around these world-class musicians and all stuff. And so I do mourn the loss of that. However, that was going away well before AI, as the rise of the writer-producer has grown, specifically in Nashville, where, that was, the minute that we started taking a little bit more of a pop approach to having producers in the writing room, that's when the demos started to fall apart. It really isn't this AI thing, I just think that the way music is created is just so different. But we can have that conversation in so many levels. Like, you also remember a time when people would hire to be only lyricists. There are people that were songwriters and like that didn't sing or play an instrument, that wrote on hits, like respected. And now I dare you to find a songwriter who can't either be the voice on the song or the demo, like in that artist capacity, or can be really heavily involved in the either the production of the song itself or just the melody and all those kinds of things. So I think the demo conversation is really just, it's less AI, it's more just the way we've changed music creation in these 2000s, I would say, honestly.
Your curiosity, you lead with curiosity, which is, I think, a great attribute, and that's why you're who you are. So, at some point, this has to end. So, and AI seems to be the way.
I thought I was going to sleep here tonight. Sherry's out of town. I thought we
Sherry's out of town. And
roast marshmallows, have some wine. No,
thank you so much, man. Honestly, God, I knew. It's funny because you have a sense how conversations, we've had so many conversations. The only, for all you guys that are out there now, I'll address you. I've been just focused on Derek, but I mean, the stuff that he's saying and articulating in such a beautiful way. This, LAG, listen up. This is the shit, and this guy has it. So thanks for joining us on this, and see you the next time we do this. Alrighty, Robert Baker, where are you? I need you.
My hero, Dan Huff. Thanks,
buddy.
Danny.
Thank you.
Love you, man.
You too. You too. And with that, let's see. What we want to do is I want to hit save. Don't cut this out, Robert. Just let this sit here.
Apple S.
Apple S. And then our phones. Look at, there we go. Yeah. We got two phones. Camera Derek, camera. Well, I guess they're both on us. See you guys.